Church, we continue to talk about winning the day. We continue to do this throughout the summer because it is our goal as a congregation of faith to encourage you as members of this body to stress less. Not that you need to live a life without stress. Believe me, a little stress is good. However, we don't want the stress to become anxiety and that blocks you. We want you to ease into that stress and to accomplish more, not for you to be more successful. That's not the goal. It's for you to be more mindful of the presence of God, for you to be more faithful with your time and your talents. Within this lesson series, we have talked already so far about 4 habits. The first one was flip the script. The second one was kiss the wave. They talk about how to deal with the past and how we need to let them go today. Then we talk about 3 and 4 habits. You remember the third one? Yes, eat the frog. And you remember the fourth one? Yes. Those were talking and helping you address the stress of today. They are the ones that help you to tackle the things that are happening today. But now the last 3 that we're going to consider talk about the unborn tomorrows. The things that you're able to do today that sets you up better for what you're going to be tackling tomorrow. It is not that you're going to worry about tomorrow today. No, it's that you are just setting, for example, you're ironing the clothing that you're going to wear tomorrow, today, so that your mind is already prepared for what you are going to achieve. All right. Habit number 5, cut the rope. And we are going to address this habit, which you find in the book by Peterson called Win the Day. And we're going to pay attention to the story of Matthew 14, which is what Shannon was talking about in her video. So let us read the gospel story for today. This is taken from the New Living Translation. Immediately after this, Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. After sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came towards them, walking on water. When the disciples saw him walking on water, they were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, says, "It's a ghost!" But Jesus spoke to them at once. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Take courage. I'm here." Then Peter called to him, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water." Yes, come, Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. "You have so little faith," Jesus said. "Why did you doubt me?" When they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshiped him. "You really are the Son of God," they exclaimed. This is the word of the Lord for the people of God. Our habit for today talks about the act before the story. Behind every success story, there is that one moment where someone did something risky and opened the door wide to the possibilities beyond their dreams. Think about that event that led to the story that you're trying to tell. Yesterday, when I was at the restaurant celebrating Bob and Martha's 50-year anniversary, I asked the questions, how did you guys meet? And, you could see that he was smiling because, he closed his eyes for a second and went down his memory lane and started talking. Obviously, Martha started correcting him right away, like normally happens. That's not how we met. And I was like, I understand. Same happens to me. I met my wife, back in 2009, and her story of how we met is different than my story, how we met. I tell people mine is more entertaining, let's just say. Think about those events that happen. Think about how it's not just that event, but to me it's significant because I had just walked out of a relationship a year before meeting my wife. And I said, Lord, I'm going to be single until you let me meet the right person. And now this is not patting myself in the back. This is just me affirming after a long relationship that failed. And I said, Lord, I need time to heal. Because I discovered that there's nothing worse in this life than meeting the right person at the wrong time. I wanted to be open and available for that which God was going to present to me. That was a decision that allowed other things to happen. And I can guarantee that this is happening to you. There are things that have happened in your life that happened at the right time, at the right moment, with the right person, because you were available and willing. And you need to recognize those pieces of the story. That's what we're going to talk about today. The book talks about the adjacent possible, the seed that plants the harvest, the moment which links what is to what could be, the necessary risk that one must take in order to accomplish fill the blank, to cut the rope. Some of you know that I'm an immigrant, and I am a naturalized citizen now. But that process wasn't easy, especially when back in 2016, my first attempt to get a religious visa, R1, was denied. And I was given a letter of deportation, or a letter telling me that I needed to leave the country or face deportation. I left. And I came back not knowing that it was that door that allowed the other door to open. And it was when the R1 was denied that I was then later able to apply for a student visa, which allowed me to go into seminary, which allowed me to go under the care of the Presbyterian of Miami Valley in Ohio, which allowed me to take the exams and allowed me to go in a full ride scholarship in seminary. It was that moment that was bad that allowed all the other things. The adjacent possible is the thing that makes something else possible. The habit 5, cut the rope, comes from the story of Elisha Eustis, which, since I read this book, I've been paying attention to every single elevator, and it is true. Eustis elevators are everywhere. It tells you the story that in 1853, Elisha Eustis was trying to sell the safety mechanisms for elevators, but nobody was buying what he was trying to sell. So he decided that he was going to build this thing, put an elevator on top, tell someone to cut the rope, come down crashing, but stopping, making sure that the brakes work, and selling his product. What he didn't realize is that the moment that he did that, all the engineers and all the people that built buildings started saying, oh, we can build higher and higher and higher. And that moment is what allowed all the other things. You don't know how the how the things that you do are happening right now are opening the possibilities of the future. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus walking on water is often the main event. However, today we're paying attention to Peter's decision to step out of the boat. That's verse 29, second part of verse 29. Before Peter was walking on water, there was a decision that he made to step out of the boat. Who else was in the boat with Peter? Every other disciple. So how come Peter is the only one with the faith to do what the others didn't want to? Because it was Peter who recognized that he wanted to cut the rope. He wanted to go and push himself that much harder, to go that much farther. Peter knew that nobody could walk on water. Yet, Peter steps out of the boat and takes the risk. Why? If you ask me, Peter was so in love with Jesus that he didn't want to wait to Jesus to come from the boat, to come to the boat. He wanted to go rushing into meeting Jesus. Peter, in no other way, reminds me of my child that when he hears the garage door opening, my kids is like sprinting towards the door, where actually I've hit him a couple times opening the door. He doesn't want to wait. He wants to meet his Lord right away. So he's faith. He says, Lord, Lord, if it's really you, come help me meeting you where you are. And Jesus says, come. Peter knew that he was the only one willing to step out in faith, to cut the rope. And yes, while Peter was the only one that sank in the end, he was also the only one that was able to walk like no other human has walked. I recognize that Peter failed at the end, but we know that Peter at least took one step on the water. See, Peter is interesting. Peter got his foot on his mouth a lot. Peter failed a lot. No other disciple was called Satan by Jesus. Get away from me, Satan. But no other disciple has been affirmed to be called the rock upon I will use to build my church. No other disciple denied Jesus 3 times, but no other disciple got a directive from Jesus telling him what to do. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord, I do. Tend my sheep. 3 times. The question is, are you the kind of disciple that wants to sit in the boat and watch Jesus coming to you? Or are you the one that is going to cut the rope after you, even the jacket, and say, no, I want to meet Jesus where Jesus is. I want to go where you are. Because I cannot breathe without you. We are called to cut the rope. Think about it like this. Can you imagine a world where we will still be connected by umbilical cords to our parents? Can you imagine that? That would be pretty long cords, if you ask me. Do you cut the rope because you don't like that child anymore? No. It is because you love that child that you cut the umbilical cord. You want that child to grow and to be nurtured and to walk and to see you. The rope provides safety for a while, but it's not meant to be forever. Friends, many of us have an umbilical cord attached to the church. And many of us need to do this and get out there, experience the world, knowing fully well that you can always come home. You can always find comfort and love in home. But the job is for you to push, to go out there. I learned that from my mother. My family has over 90 members in Colombia. And they all live within the radius of what could be the city of Orlando. 3 million people. And all my family lives within 30-mile radius. That's 90 members of the church that lives in one city. When I was young, I couldn't go anywhere without somebody knowing. Only 3 members of my family live outside of that radius. My brother, who lives in North Carolina, me, who lives here, a cousin that lives in Spain. Everybody else. And I'm not saying the family close is a bad thing. I'm just saying that sometimes the family needs to push you. And my mother knew this, but it comes with a price. That means that she has to travel once a year to see her grandbabies. You know, because at this point, who cares about Mario? All I want to see is Dante and Nico, right? When you pay attention to cutting the rope, it's not necessarily that you're cutting that which is bad. It's that if you love that person, you want them to grow. You want them to imagine unborn tomorrows in the name of God and for the glory of God. And we are to do this with our brothers and sisters in faith. We are to do it with our children. We are to do it with our significant other. We are to encourage people to say, cut the rope. How? That's where Bible study and edification comes in. Or do you think that Otis, before doing that thing that he did in 1853, he didn't rehearse before? Or he didn't try it before? No. That's where we have to practice and grow in faith and be sure that we can go and come back if we need to. My friends, for us to prepare for tomorrow, the preparation begins today. Be not afraid of cutting the rope. You will grow, and your activity of faith will pay dividends far more than you can plan. To God be the glory. Amen. Church, let us pray.